Hello, everyone. My name is Nyla Biliu. I am the chair of the Policy and Curriculum Committee, and I now call the Portland Public School Board's Policy and Curriculum Committee meeting to order. I don't need to take. Okay, sorry. I think we're good. I don't think I need to take any. Okay, sorry. My mistake. I don't have my laptop on me, so it's hard. Okay, I think we're good. I don't know. Do I need to do anything else?
Time. Date.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna do that again. Just do it for the inconvenience. My name is Nyla, and I am now called the Policy and Curriculum Board meeting to order. It is Wednesday, 5 p.m. I can't see what time it is. Yep. It is Wednesday, 5 p.m. and we are meeting online. Can anybody is it okay if folks introduce themselves just so everybody knows who's here? And can you start us off, Julianne?
I'm Julie Opperman, District 3 representative member of this committee. Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison Dame. I'm the Director of Secondary Academics. I'll pass to Sarah.
I'm Sarah Warren, Senior Executive Director of Strategy, and I'm going to pass to Member Ali.
I am Yusra Ali. I'm a large member and part of this committee. I'll pass it to Dr. Ahmed.
Thanks, Yusra. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Schools, and I will pass it to Dr. Atkins Duina.
Good evening. I am Angela Atkinson Duina. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Schools, and I will pass it to Jessie Robinson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Robinson. I'm the Director of Elementary Academics, and I just want you to know that I'm at home with a 4-year-old, so I might get a visitor at some point. And I'll pass it to who's left.
We've all gone, actually.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, Jessie. And sorry y'all for the awkwardness. Sarah, would you like to start us off?
So we have a few agenda items tonight. The primary one, though, is to hear an update from our colleagues from the network teams who've joined us to talk about our two of our prioritized strategic initiatives that the committee will be looking at this year. And then we're going to come back around and look at the committee's agenda arc for the whole year. And during that conversation, we'll have an opportunity to hear from the committee members about some of the topics that you all are hoping to add into the arc for the year. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to my network colleagues. I'm not sure who's starting us out. Is it Dr. Atkinson-Duina?
I'll go ahead and give a little introduction, and then I'll let Jessie and Allison kind of take the lead. But I do want to just say thank you to Jessie Robinson, who was our District K-12 Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment before we had the reorganization of our structure. And much of the work that we are talking about today, even though it's it feels like we're calling it the launch year for our strategic plan. It was work that had already gotten off the ground. And I think it's just important to recognize that this work has already been started. We did start with some of the implementation last year, K-8, and I think we will be able to do even better this year. It feels like we're off to a really great start. And that's also just want to thank Jesse and Allison for their good planning over the summer to help set us up for a strong implementation this year. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Dr. Ahmed, but. All right. So
before we go forward, sorry, can we just acknowledge that Vice Chair Bondo has joined? Welcome. It's nice to see you.
I'd also like to just point out that we did include the data from the Maine State Assessment in this slide deck, just to have it, just to have the status of our state assessment in here. But there was really an extensive presentation on this last night by Haley Didrikson, and so we are not going to go into more detail than Haley did in her presentation. So we won't spend as much time on that, even though it is in the slide deck.
Great. So I want to share my screen. Hopefully this works. Share. And then that. Sorry, starting at the beginning. Here we go. All right, everybody. Okay, here we go. So today, Allison and I are going to talk about 2.1 and 2.2, which is the ELA implementation. And we're really happy to be here and share the work we're doing because we believe it's really critical work, and it's exciting to be able to focus on it. So we've done some introductions, but here are our outcomes for today. Today, we'd like to talk to you about why we believe adopting high-quality instructional materials is important, and its alignment to our instructional vision that, as Angela mentioned, has been underway for the last few years. We want to talk to you about our vision for that instructional vision by watching an example video of some student learning, and then connect that to our curricular choices that we have made. And then finally, we want to share with you the plan that we have this year for adopting ELA curriculum.
Jesse, sorry to interrupt, but just for the sake of the public, if people aren't familiar with ELA, can you explain what English language arts means?
Yes, English language arts. I'll make sure I pay attention to my acronyms as we go through this. Thanks, Sarah. So ELA, we are we'll talk more about it, but we're talking about implementing curriculum that addresses our literacy needs in grades K through 8. So our first agenda item is talking about our implementation and our strategic plan. So kind of giving you just like orienting you to where this fits within the strategic plan. Again, literacy implementation in our curriculum. We're going to talk about our why we're doing what we're doing, and how our curriculum is aligned to research. We want to share something, a video clip where you see it in action. We want to connect this to the data that you heard about last night and talk about why it's so important to do what we're doing, and then share our plan for the year in broad strokes, and give you all a chance to ask some questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Allison.
Thanks, Jesse. So first, we just want to frame this work in terms of how it fits into the strategic plan. So what you see on the screen are the strategic plan initiatives that are sort of alive this year in our work as a district, as an organization. But tonight we'll be focusing on 2.1 and 2.2. The difference between 2.1 and 2.2 is just the grade span. But within both of those grade spans, this is about supporting the use of high quality instructional materials supporting teachers in really understanding that curriculum very deeply so that when they implement it, they can implement it in a way that results in high levels of cognitive engagement for all the students. The curricula also comes with aligned assessments to standards, and we're also working with teachers to use their collaboration time to use those assessments to adjust instruction, and then finally to build systems where needed to respond to student needs. So it's a short paragraph with a lot of bullet points within it, but the high quality instructional materials are driving all of those pieces. And this, yeah, go ahead. So we believe that broadly, in ways that are some more direct and some more less direct, this work is going to positively impact all our mission measures. And we're looking at page 1 of 2 of our 5-year mission measures. But we've identified the ones with the stars that we think it will have the most direct and probably quickest impact. And so those are places we'll be really watching to see if we're having the impact that we want to have. So that would be the percent of students proficient in ELA on that test that you saw last night, percent of multilingual learners who are showing growth on access, which is going to test their academic language development, and then percent of students meeting benchmark on grade 2 MCAS. I think we'll get into this more, but our CKLA curriculum in direct phonics, we want to make sure that students are meeting those benchmarks as they go so that they don't need to play catch up later.
And I'll share more about what CKLA is. That's another one of those.
Oh yeah, sorry for the acronym.
We'll get there.
It's a curriculum. All right, and then on this slide, same thing. We hope that will impact positively all of these mission measures, but the ones we're going to be really paying close attention to in the short and medium term are the gaps between students with disabilities and multilingual students, non-multilingual students, and all students and economically disadvantaged students. So we're trying to cut all of those gaps. And then finally, some folks might be wondering, why just English language arts? Like, don't we need to help students across all the core content areas and beyond? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. But our strategic plan is designed to maximize like the bandwidth of the work that we can do as an organization year upon year. And so next year, we'll be layering in really more intensive work on math, and then following that, science and social studies in these 2 grade bands. So as Jesse mentioned, another objective of our presentation tonight is we just want to make sure that folks understand why we've invested in high quality instructional materials as one of our main strategic initiatives. So this, the statistics I'm about to go through are from an article called The Opportunity Myth by the organization TNTP, and it's national data. It's not Portland specific. But what they found was that most students have very high expectations for themselves and expect to go to college. So they are showing up in our schools, we can infer, expecting us to prepare them to go to college. Those students are also mainly complying and doing the work that they're asked to do in school. 71% of them not only completed their assignments, but succeeded on their assignments, were passing the work that they did. But on those very same assignments, only 17% of the time were they actually completing grade level standards. So you can imagine that if the students are not completing grade level work each and every year, by the time they get to 12th grade, we've failed them on that promise of them expecting us to have them ready for college. And these gaps.
Sorry, could I just ask a clarifying question on that last, this one? So are you saying that in the testing, they're succeeding about 70%, but in the in-class grade level work, they're not doing as well?
So both of these are about the assignments they're being asked to do in class. And I want to clarify again, this is national data, not Portland specific, but this is like walking into classroom, seeing what kids are up to that day, what's being demanded of them in terms of skills and knowledge. Mm-hmm. And what they saw is that the students were doing the work and even passing and doing well in school, but the work itself was not rigorous enough to prepare them to be college ready.
Oh, okay. So the So the work that they're being given in the curriculum.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
no problem. And so I'm gonna read the slide from the bottom up. So when they were in classrooms with mostly white students, they were 4 times as likely to be working on high quality lessons, which means that they were in part of what that means is that the standards were grade level. Conversely, students of color, those from low income families, English language learners, and students with disabilities or IEPs were were much less likely to be exposed to that level of work and instruction. So this research is really driving our decision-making as an organization when it comes to academics. We know that too often economically disadvantaged students and students of color, as well as those other 2 groups I just mentioned, have not been exposed to rigorous grade level tasks and excellent instruction that requires all students to engage in the most important cognitive work that puts the thinking on students. And so both our instructional vision and also the decision-making we're making as we implement it, we're always checking that it's addressing this problem. So this is an overview of our district-wide instructional vision. And I wanted to mention the connection here in part to the high quality instructional materials is that when we vet and choose a curriculum that meets our standards, we want it to be driving some of these goals in terms of instructional vision. So we're going to choose a curriculum that, has protocols that facilitate active learning by all students. We're certainly going to choose curricula that are keeping the standards at grade level because that's part of how we keep high expectations. And we're going to choose curricula that have those shared assessments that can really be used to strategically and systematically improve instruction through the use of data. Handing it back to Jessie.
We also wanted to just share that the curriculum that we've chosen is aligned to research. And so some of you might have heard about the science of reading. It's a body of research that has been developed over the last, few decades. But just now, really, it's become, kind of a buzzword in the national conversation about teaching reading. And so this is just kind of a nice visual to help get our heads around how we teach reading, and then to share kind of how that is aligned to our curriculum. So in order for students to learn how to read, they both need to decode or be able to read the words that are on a page. And so that's this word recognition part at the bottom, the blue. And so we have K through 2 students that are learning this explicitly. So we're teaching it very systematically in the curriculum that we're using, and that's word recognition. And then also students need to be able to make meaning out of the words that they read on the page, and that's the language comprehension. So that includes things like vocabulary, background knowledge, and being able to understand the structure of language. And so as students get older, these are slowly woven together into a skilled reader. And so we're very excited to share that the curriculum choices that we've chosen directly support this kind of learning. So for literacy in K through 8, we have, for the language comprehension, we have EL, ELA. I know that's a lot of letters, but the ELA is English Language Arts, and the EL stands for Expeditionary Learning, which some of you know is a model that we have at Presumpscot, King, and Pasco that really is focused on student engagement and rigor and, really high interest topics. So that is happening K through 8. And then for the decoding part of it, again, systematic, explicit for K through 2 students, that's happening through CKLA. Which I actually don't know what that stands for, but because we don't use what it stands for anymore, it's just CKLA. I think it's Core Knowledge Language Arts, but it's essentially, if you remember phonics, It's like the phonics side of things, K through 2, and a bunch of other pieces of the science of reading. We have some other curriculum choices that we've made that also lead to students learning how to read. But in terms of this presentation, we're really focused on the EL, ELA, and the CKLA. So we wanted to share a protocol from the EL, ELA curriculum. A protocol is essentially a tool that teachers would use to support student learning in their classroom. It's like a structure, if you will. And so I'm hoping this works. Can you see this now, or do I need to change? Yeah. Okay, great. So what I'd like you to do is after this video, we'd like you to make some connections about how this kind of instruction might lead to more equitable outcomes for students. And I'm very proud to let you know that we have some Presumpscot students that are in this video. And this is a national organization that puts out these sort of videos about the protocols within the curriculum. And let me know if the sound works. Uh-oh.
Snakes have existed for about one.
Oops.
Throughout history, some people have believed snakes have special.
Everybody knows that school is more fun when students get to move around the room and use their bodies and talk to each other about what they're thinking and reading about. Back-to-back, face-to-face is a great way to do that.
3, 2, 1.
I think snakes live in Australia, Africa, Asia.
Okay, so I'm going to look for 2 volunteers who are going to help, and they're going to go in the middle in the fishbowl. Everybody is going to have their eyes on it.
It's a good idea to go over how to be safe and what the steps are in back-to-back, face-to-face. The first step is to find your partner and stand back-to-back. The second step is listen to the question.
What is your favorite thing to do in the summer?
And this is really important. Think about your answer. The third step is to turn face-to-face.
3, 2, 1.
The fourth step is sharing, taking turns and speaking and listening.
Mine is ride my bike.
And the fifth step is to turn back to back.
Nice job. Okay, let's give them a quick round of applause.
If this is a new activity in your classroom, it's a good idea to practice with an easy question first.
What is one pet you would like your mom to buy you? Still quiet. Thumbs up by your heart when you know. 3, 2, 1.
I want a pet snake and the King Kong snake. We might even talk about what worked and what didn't work to make sure everybody is ready.
What is one thing you thought we did well when we were doing the back-to-back, face-to-face?
When I was with my partner Maya, I just asked her, do you want to go first, when you didn't tell us who to go first. So then she just went, and then I went. Then you're ready to give it a try.
How do people affect snakes? Some people hunt snakes for their beautiful skins. The skins are used to make many items such as belts, purses, and shoes. So we're thinking right now.
Giving students think time really helps with learning.
Let's think about this question. How do people affect snakes? So how does what people do affect snakes? So listen, Claire, stand right back up. Show us back to back with your reading partner. When you know, show me with a thumb by your heart. 3, 2, 1, turn.
Because they feel that they use it for their belts and my grandma has a one that's like a corn snake skin too. Let's remember the 5 steps to back, face-to-face.
All right. So before I jump back into the presentation, just first of all, those 2 students that were explaining the protocol back-to-back, face-to-face, they are students from Presumpscot. And they did this video for the national organization Expeditionary Learning a few years ago before we even adopted ELA, but it was great to see that they were featured in that film. So when we look at, actually, I'm going to pull up the the presentation again and go back to our instructional vision. There we go. I'm just going to share this. And if you all could reflect, how do you see the instructional vision show up in that video? And feel free to come off mute. Here we go. So inclusive classroom environment, active learning, high expectations, culturally responsive teaching, asset-based approach, team approach, or assessments for learning. Anybody have any reflections on what you saw?
I'll give my reflections. I really appreciated what the little girl said about them choosing who goes first. Like, I think that was a really good lesson, like, to for whoever to speak up within the team, to like give up that space and not be asked or not be told. I think that's a really good critical thinking capacity. I think the team approach as well, the fact that they get to like sit down and reflect together, I think is really good. I think the questions were broad, so that it doesn't, I guess there wouldn't be like much capacity to like trigger students, I guess, because like that question about the pets, it made me think like, oh, that could be something where people are like, I don't like, my mom cannot get me a pet, or like I've never had a pet, but just the general like, if you want one, like if you ever thought about one, what would it look like? I think like have like laying out questions like that instead of like, what pet do you have at home, or like what pet, you know what I mean, to like get away from that stigmatizing or that like kind of rounding off of what people might not have access to at home. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I think you hit on a number of the pieces of our instructional vision, like culturally responsive teaching to the extent that we can, right? There's always room for growth there, but really ensuring that the instruction we provide provides different access points for all students. Having all students be able to talk, not just the teacher talking at them, like you said, like inviting all students to engage, which really, like, that's a core part of equitable outcomes, is having all kids create language, do the reading, do the writing, do the thinking, not just the teacher. So thank you for that reflection. I think that really hit it home. So that's just a sample of our ELA curriculum, but kind of gives you a taste of it. So
I want to jump a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. I'm going on the other side a little bit, on the side of understanding the concept here, because I can see the value of the critical thinking, like Nala just mentioned. I mean, kids, they had now opportunity to really open up their mindset and start thinking about how to answer questions. So it's a more broader, more inclusive representation. I mean, it's not like you just said, Jesse, it's not only the teachers, it's the interaction between students. But my only concern is that the implementation in the classroom, that's the only concern in my head. If we apply that kind of vision here with the new material, how is going to play out in each classroom in our district? This is my main concern. So I mean, this is exactly why I've been all the time asking about what's our classroom implementation of the curriculum? So those are something that will come out when you finish the presentation. So this is where I'm landing. The concept is fine. The critical thinking of each student participation is exactly what we're looking for, because they open up their brain to really start investing on the research and finding the reading, finding the words, and finding different ways to define or bringing a definition for the question. But for me, is how we applying that one is more equitable places in the classroom setting. This is why I have my concern, Jess.
Thank you. And we will address that. So I appreciate that as well. All right, so I'm going to turn things.
Jesse, do you mind if I add something that I just want to highlight some things that folks may not, that it may be good for them to just recognize, because this would be from an ELA curriculum. And the other thing that we talk about why is a really strong curriculum is that it does include things like content knowledge and informational text. So that the readings that we're having students do is also about like building their knowledge of the world and what's happening. And we know that that contributes to their understanding of reading. So the curriculum that we're using includes that. Also, just looking at the protocol there, the fact that the teacher made sure to give students like some wait time to think. We also know that that's like another key practice to help students engage and have an opportunity to respond. So I know like it seems it seems like simple, it's just a structure, but there are actually a number of instructional moves that help make sure that, that we are really engaging students and their brains in some like rich content and knowledge about the world. So.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Bondo, if I hear you correctly, I think you're saying the curriculum can be the best curriculum on the planet, but if the implementation is not done with integrity or done consistently across our schools, like it won't have an impact. And I think the team here could not agree more. And when I get done with the data, I think it'll be a nice segue into that. So you saw this data yesterday, so I'm going to breeze through it pretty quickly, but we did keep it here for reference because, of course, the point of all of this is to move this data. So again, as you saw yesterday, this is last spring versus this spring, and we're not yet meeting their 5-year target of 70% at or above state expectations. Those are the blue bars. So we want to see those moving up to at least 70% and beyond. Digging down, we have the strongest results at elementary, although still not where we need them, and then they drop off, and especially drop off in high schools. To what Dr. Atkinson-Nuina was just saying, a hypothesis here, although it's only a hypothesis, is that the content demands jump so much in high school, so that elementary and middle school students are learning reading skills, but not also picking up the core content along the way, then it's going to result in a problem. Again, just a hypothesis, but something we're thinking about. Across our elementary schools, we're concerned by the range of results. Here again, consistent implementation, consistent curriculum. The hope is going to start to have more consistent positive results across our schools, that it shouldn't matter which school you go to. And here again, less variation in middle schools, but still a little. And again, nobody meeting that 70% yet. That's where we're aiming to go. And now these are going to break down not by grade band, but by group. And this is where we really see the most troubling gaps. So I'm going to flip into my so there's there's different things. Anyways, in these, you have a nearing a 30 or 40% gap here between students who are economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged. An even more extreme gap between our multilingual students and our not multilingual students. Again, a gap here for students who have IEPs and students who don't have IEPs. And then here you can notice that our white students and our multiracial students are sort of beating the district average. Asian students are around the average, but really troubling gaps with our Black students and our Latinx students. And so these are going back to the why between high quality instructional materials, we want our decision making and our implementation to be making real strides in terms of closing these opportunity gaps. Back to Jessie.
So, as Allison said, that those gaps are really what drive the work that we do, because right now our white students or our economically advantaged students are doing relatively fine. It's that, and we believe that's the opportunity gap that Allison talked about at the very beginning, right? That they most likely are being exposed to grade level material throughout their educational experience, and that we want to make sure that all students get access to grade level content that is high quality in every classroom that they're in. That
Jess, please.
Yep.
I'm sorry to stop you. I just need a clarification. When you mentioned about the white student, they've been exposed with more greater level material. I mean, in the classroom setting or outside? I mean, at the home or tutoring or mentoring? I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So that was. I don't want to say that we haven't done the study in Portland, but nationally, right? The data that Allison shared was that on average, white students often are exposed, and that to more grade level content even in school. And there is research that says, and I'm not going to say this, there is research that also white students are economically advantaged students get access to more rich content, vocabulary, all of those. Like, they come into the school with a lot of the skills from their like a literature-rich household. If you have a lot of resources, you tend to have books, right? So there's a lot of research around that, and Vice Chair Bondo, I'm happy to dig into that. But the research shows that if you are economically advantaged, you have a lot of that that knowledge already. And so we're ensuring that the opportunity exists so that all students get access to that kind of knowledge building, vocabulary, and access to the foundational skills that they need when they're in our schools.
All right, yeah, I really understand where you're coming from. So I just want to make sure that when we're talking about exposing to the greater material, is not in the classroom, because they have all other students in the same classroom. I mean, the way you make me understand is like they've been teaching behind the door, and all the students, they are not exposed. So I just want to have the clear language while we're talking about the white student have been greater exposed to the better material than the other ones, because they come in with a more richer language outside. So that's a plus. And I can imagine. Yes. Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question. Okay, so here's our plan. So first of all, as Dr. Akincentuina mentioned, we have started implementing both of these curriculum, but this is the first year that in all schools and all classrooms, we are implementing CKLA in grades K and 2. And in all schools and all classrooms, we are implementing ELA in grades K through 8. And so we're really excited about that. We leveraged ESSER dollars to buy this curriculum. It's not cheap. So I think of this as like a moment in time where we were able to really use a ton of those resources towards this. And so that's exciting to me, that we were able to leverage that, and that this also, the science of reading kind of movement has also supported this shift, so that we're aligning all of our literacy curriculum to the science of reading. In terms of the implementation, or another way of saying that is teacher support, right? How are we ensuring that how are we supporting all teachers to implement this curriculum, which is not easy. It's a big lift. These are some of the things that we're doing. So one is we have an instructional coach in every single school. And they are receiving their own professional development on the curriculum so that they can then support teachers with this curriculum. Principals are really taking some ownership around this, and they've done their own professional learning this summer. And they're working side by side with the coaches to support teachers in professional learning and planning. We have set aside weekly planning time every week for teachers to what we call internalize the lessons and units. So it's a little different when you're given a curriculum, right? You don't have to write a lesson plan, but instead you have to like deeply understand it in order to do a great job with delivering it to the students that are in front of you. They're not just page turning, right? They're not just like reading it. It's an art to then take the curriculum that they're given and then make it work for the kids in front of them. And so we are ensuring that teachers have time for that. Time to talk with their colleagues, time to dig into it, time to read it and digest it and figure out, okay, how will this work for my multilingual students? How will this work for my students who have reading disabilities, right? So those are the kinds of moves that we're asking teachers to do. They need time to do that. We're also implementing giving teachers ongoing informal feedback. So, twice a month, somebody's going to be in their classroom saying, you did X, Y, and Z really well. I love the way you did the back-to-back face-to-face protocol. Kids were super engaged. Next time, maybe think about how, these two students, I noticed that they were not engaged, and how could you get them engaged, right? So it's like that ongoing conversation with teachers about how to implement it more effectively. In a context, in a culture of we're all learning this, right? We're not like blaming anybody, but it's all a process where we learn this together. And then the last piece is around formative assessment. So this is also aligned to our instructional vision, where we use assessment along the way, not just the big assessment at the end of the year, but like, how do we know how kids are doing? So we had a training today with a great assessment that's going to give teachers that kind of data at their fingertips, and they're going to know who's doing really well, who's getting it, and who needs some extra support. And so that those data meetings are going to help drive some decisions that teachers and coaches and principals are making along the way. And then so this, we tried to kind of summarize what that support looks like in this visual, where in the green at the top, we adopt the high quality instructional materials aligned to our instructional vision. Then teachers get time to internalize that curriculum with each other. Then they teach it, and then they reflect and adjust, right? So they're looking at data, they're looking at student work, they're thinking about how it's going. And then they get some support around their own learning, and then they do it again, and it's a cycle. And so we really believe that this cycle is both supportive of the people in our buildings, where they feel like they're getting what they need in order to be successful. And we also believe that it will lead to equitable outcomes for our students. So we have a monitoring plan to kind of like see if all this is working. Superintendent Scallon will be meeting with each network team once a month to review progress towards our goals. We're going to be conducting 3 district walkthroughs alongside principals and coaches. So walkthrough is where you go into many classrooms in a building while they're teaching and use a common tool so people kind of know what you're looking for. So we collect data across all the schools, and we do that with our attuned consultants. So it's really awesome to have an outside person to kind of give you some checks and balances and like, are we all seeing the same thing? And then after those walkthroughs, we'll have these data step backs where we look at the data from those walkthroughs, also look at student achievement data, right? So like we have benchmarks throughout the year where we're seeing how students are doing and how are they responding to the curriculum. And then we have very clear next steps. How are we going to take what we learned and then make adjustments? So that's kind of overarching view of our plan. We'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jesse, for an amazing presentation. I know that was a lot. Julianne, go ahead. And if anybody else has questions, please just raise your hand and feel free to speak after the other person has spoken.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was very useful to see the video and to, in a particular situation. And there are some things I really appreciate about the planning of teacher support, because I do think that that's incredibly important. The video was great, the talk and turn, but my reaction was something along the line of what Dr. Bondo said, in that this works if everyone is kind of close to each other and well behaved, and if they get to choose their own person, if they'll go to the person that would not necessarily stretch them. It'll be comfortable, which is really important in this kind of setup. But it may be that, two kids who speak Portuguese will speak Portuguese to each other in the situation. And that's a concern I have. And that's one piece of a huge curriculum. So I realize there are lots and lots and lots of pieces to that. But I guess the thing couple things I'm concerned about is how can you differentiate this for a very heterogeneous classroom in the very young ages, and that would be the one thing, and how you're going to support that is my comment to it. I guess in the observations, which is great, that's probably one thing that happens with administrators is they get swamped with what they have to do, and they don't have time to, legitimately do not have time to make observations because there's the other issues that come up, and that there are other ways. I wonder if they're actually going to be peer observations, and if you've set up a situation for that, as I think that's part of the Danielson setup that is the teacher evaluation program anyway. So that would be something I would ask about. And then I guess in the giving of the curriculum and the coaching, is the pedagogical instruction significant in that, or is it here are the lessons, and this is kind of how you do it? Is the back story, is that strong? I'm seeing nods, so I'm okay, because that I think is how one internalizes it better. I'm getting almost done, Nikki. One of the things, as so teacher practice, not just being explained how to do it and do it in your classroom. And if a teacher's having a hard time doing it, which, we all learn at different times and different levels with different groups of kids, that is their thoughts on how a teacher might practice outside of their classroom so that they can go through that piece, whether it's an extended day or extended year, because not everyone is going to, like it has happened, not everybody could get into it. So I guess that's a thought. And the formative assessment data meeting is great. As a board member, this is what I would love to know in a month or two, is were the teachers observed? How many of the teachers were observed? How many times were they observed? What was the teacher's reaction to that? And as a monitor individual progress, and as in the groups, not necessarily is each classroom or each group of differentiating demographically what's happening. Are the kids are all kids improving, and are the ones that need more improvement actually getting more improvement? And if they don't, so that's what I want to know. And I guess, what's the plan for stopgapping this? If by December, a half to 2/3 of the class has really progressed for, and all, and you've got a third that's stuck for whatever reason, or for, whatever demographic situation, what are we going to be doing to help them get along? There, I think that's all. I looked at your presentation ahead of time, and I had all these things in my head going on, and you cleared up so many of them. But it's hard to implement a new curriculum, everyone to do it, and I appreciate that. But anyway, that is as it is. So those are my comments. I don't know if you feel you can do the kind of letting us know how the teachers are doing, letting us know how the students are doing demographically, and what we're going to do in November or December if kids are not progressing.
I'll take a crack at answering kind of generally. I mean, I hear your question around differentiation, right? You have a very diverse group of students in front of you. You have a curriculum, like one curriculum, right? I think that's kind of what you're asking about. Like, so how does this one curriculum meet the needs of all the kids? And that's I think a huge challenge, and one that there's not like an easy answer for that. But I do believe, I really strongly believe, and I think the research supports it, that ensuring that all kids have access to this, grade level content and this, like you said, like pedagogical moves. So it's not just we're going to learn about snakes. It's how do we learn about snakes, and how do we get kids to talk about it? And those structures that you put in place ensure that all kids are interacting together, so that you can so that all kids get that exposure. But then there's a lot of different moves you make to support different kids in different ways, and the data then helps you figure out how to do that. We also have some intervention programs that we're now implementing. So like you said, the stopgap, we're going to be noticing that some kids are not getting what they need in class. So they're getting the exposure, but they're not necessarily getting it, right? They're not proficient on whatever skill you're working on. And so we have some structures, like we have something called flex time at the elementary school, where kids get an extra dose of that, right? So the kids that need it get more. This also exists at the middle school level. It's called something different at every middle school, but it's like an additional amount of time to get additional help. So we have structures in place for things like that, but unless you have a strong core instruction process, you can't do that. You can't kind of like intervention yourself out of student misunderstanding. You have to ensure that all kids are getting what they, the baseline, if that makes sense. So I don't know if I answered that, what your question is, super eloquently, but I do believe that all of these systems together will support more students to be successful.
And I would just add on to your questions, your first question about like, well, what if the student picks, someone who's not going to push them or stretch them, and bundling that with your questions around like teacher support for teachers who need more practice. So that would be like exactly the type of conversation we might have after a walkthrough, or an instructional coach or principal or AP might have, is to notice exactly that, and then to say, let's pair up the reading pairs. They'll have the same reading pair for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, but we're going to be in control of who their reading partner is. So those are the micro adjustments that we're using the walkthroughs to make. And then a second point around practice, I think one thing that we want to get better at is using modeling. So having both Jesse and I, the principals, the APs, the instructional coach, really feel confident in not just telling a teacher what to do, but modeling it for them, so that, they have that extra layer of instruction. And that's a best practice that we know that I think now we have the structures to build out.
And Dr. Oberman, you mentioned also about are the teachers getting feedback and getting observed? And yes, they're getting that. And so far, we started that process as the year started. So Dr. Atkins, Duina, and myself are on the ground, like every day, at least 2, 3 schools visiting them. So far, I had close to 20 or more classroom observations with the principals and writing feedback together to the teachers about what we have seen, which includes like the strengths as well as areas of growth. So it is something that not only that left to the principals, we will be on the ground, and we are already.
My only follow-up, if I can, Mickey, question is that will you be able to give us data about the observations? What percentage of the teachers had one observation or two observations? What is their reaction to it? That sort of thing, as we move along, as well as the data on at least aggregated data on how kids are progressing in the programming would be really great for this committee to know come, give it a couple months, let it warm up and everybody kind of in school. It's still early and all, but those are the kinds of things I really would think be useful. And I will stop, Mickey.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Thank you. Thank you, Juliana. Thank you, Nalat. So I have a couple questions here on the first, my first question just align what Julian just asked about the feedback. I mean, the one I want to see is not only the informal feedback, but I really want to see challenges from teachers around the implementation. And, how often we can have those information, I think is going to guide us to see where we're moving those variations by school bank. So I see then we have on that presentation, most of the schools started a year ago. I mean, from 23 to 24. That's correct? The CKL, the CKLA, JC, if I'm correct?
Yep. For CKLA, all schools started last year, but not every grade level did it.
Not every grade level. Okay. So when I look at those state assessment and I look at like elementary school, we got 4 schools who really made above the target, at 4 other schools didn't. Dr. Angela, those are the 4 schools who didn't. They did not implement the new curriculum instruction, or what's going on right there. So I just want to see what's the balance right here, if it's making sense what I'm asking for.
Mm-hmm. So I wish I could say that it was that clear cut about those differences in the state assessment scores. If you look, I mean, I would say those assessment scores match up more with the demographics of the population that are in those schools. And so if you look across the state of Maine, and I haven't done the look across the state of Maine with the current assessment, definitely with any of our previous state assessments and probably most other state assessments, then you can see a pretty clear connection between the demographics that a school serves and how they perform on that state assessment. So, I think that right now that's probably like what a lot of what we're seeing in the state assessment is more a representation of that.
Okay.
I would, I mean, the other which we will bring to you and we did some of that last year around our internal assessments, right? Like we have the early bird assessment, we have M-class or DIBELS, which M-class is the same as DIBELS. DIBELS can be done in paper or electronically. So M-class is the electronic version of Dibbles, which is it's an assessment of foundational reading skills, or like the phonics that we're teaching. So those are the assessments that we do to kind of check and see how our curriculum is working and what we're doing. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Just a follow-up question. So if we already start a year ago on middle school and high school, what's going on? Do we still have some school we did not implement at all on some of those on the new curriculum instruction?
So the middle schools this year, they are all implementing the new curriculum for the EL curriculum. So
that means they were behind. Excuse me, Dr. Ahmed. If we start last year, that means we start just with elementary grade, or it's supposed to be all the grades, but middle school and high school, they are behind.
Middle schools, they're behind. The middle schools, they started last year, and not all classrooms are implemented. So this year.
What's the reason? What's the reason?
Well, if I can add, so last year, so there's 3 modules, so it's like 3 units in the year, and each one requires like really understanding it really well, and so it's hard to do it all 3 all at once. And so we sort of had a slower rollout with middle school in particular. We did 1 module the first year, 2 modules last year, and this year we're doing 3 modules. That means that all students will get all of the standards for the year in ELA.
So they will start having the standard this year, right? If I understand you right.
All of the standards, yes, through that. And it's not to say that teachers weren't teaching things, right, but they weren't teaching all the same thing from this curriculum.
Yes, okay, I see. So that means we may see some of the change on those variations. If I can see it's not going to be next year assessment, we can take about 2 or 3 years. Then we can see some other change. If we have the right implementation and the right instruction protocol applying on each classroom setting.
So I don't know. I just want to. So you had the presentation last night, and Haley presented the target of basically increasing our district performance rate on the state assessment by about 10%, by about 10 points, right, over these next 5 years. And I know I would say that's a pretty aggressive. I mean, it may not seem like it, but it is a pretty aggressive timeline. If you look at some of the data about like improving districts, how much they improve by, 2% each year would be quite significant. So, I think that we hope that we see it go in that direction. We are gonna. It's gonna take time, I think, to see that. The other thing that that we see in data sometimes is at points of transition, there's a dip and then it goes back up. And we have seen that in our data for Portland Public Schools for a long time, where we see like elementary schools go up here, and then kids go to middle school, and there's a big drop in 6th grade, and then they continue to like progress up, and then so that like dip that happens in that transition period is one that's well known in the research. So it's just, I mean, it takes they leave their elementary schools where they're known by most of the people in the building, if not all of them. It's a challenging, adolescence is definitely a period of like lots of exploration, which has its, ups and some downs there. And so moving into a new school, a new environment, a whole bunch of different peer relationships, seeing some dip there is not uncommon.
And also Also, we will be administering center point assessment. So that will be also another data point that we will see if there's a, to know that formatively to inform us about what is going on.
I really appreciate the move that we are taking right now. But why I say that, because I just want to get my mind all straight. And I think my question, my comment, I think going to mostly Jesse, Dr. Allison, and Dr. Ahmed, because you have been here a little longer. So I just want to go around why we are here right now. I mean, I try to understand. I mean, we never had any standard curriculum across all our grades until we define the high quality instruction that you are presenting us right now. So that means if I understood is that we just have each teacher been using their own curriculum and then just aligning to reach the target, if I'm right or not. I just want to get a sense so I can support while we're moving forward, because when I see the results, we have not investing on most of those students who left already, graduated, who've been all gone. So that means I just want to see why we getting from here and we moving to the new direction. I mean, if something happened, we never had any curriculum. I think we invest on the core instruction a couple of years ago, and I think if I'm just mistaken, Jesse, I think we start with mathematics, right?
That's correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. But Vice Chair Bondo, we implemented during the pandemic, so it was a
a lot of combination.
Implementation, but I will say we're beginting to see, and I'm speaking out of turn, but some growth in the math at the elementary level, I believe, in large part because of that. I think this is a national trend that when the Common Core came out in 2012, hold on one second, Topes, okay? People are
it's so cute.
When the Common Core came out in 2012, there was a huge emphasis on standards, right? And so people are like, okay, we have to make sure that all kids get the standards. And so people oftentimes created their own curriculum that was aligned to standards, and that was really important work. So people understood the standards, but what we found was that there was this great variation in how that was implemented, right? So some people interpreted the standards differently. It's a national trend to say, okay, we actually have really great curriculum. Why aren't we using it? Why don't we spend our time on something other than creating curriculum if it's already created out there? And instead spend our time with ensuring that the kids in front of us are understanding what we're teaching, right? And so I don't know if that's helpful kind of context, but I do think that's a national shift, and that's something that we also are, following the research that is an important shift for us. And so I do follow the
research too. Yes, I do follow the research. That's why I'm kind of little tough and little sweet talking to you that way, because I followed that for years. And that's one of my reasons that I run for school board. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I think if with the new strategic plan, I really hope that, is giving us a new high quality instruction. And I think like Juliana just mentioned, is just the feedback, the implementation in the classroom. That's going to make a big difference. Thank you so much. Thank you, Naila. I'm done.
Oh, thank you, Mickey. I'll start with Sarah's question first, and then I will ask my questions. So Sarah said, for the students who do not get CKLA and are still in elementary school, is there any targeted work happening to ensure they are meeting outcomes?
So CKLA is a foundational skills curriculum. We give it in K through 2. And so, hold on one second, Doodle. Okay. A K2, almost a K2 student is coming up, almost there. So if they are still in K through 2, then they will be getting CKLA, and there's a lot of cyclical instruction. So if they're a second grade student, they're getting a lot of what they would have gotten in K and 1. If they're in grades 3 through 5, we still have a resource called Lexia Core 5, and it is an adaptive software where students are getting either their grade level foundational skills that they need, like roots and suffixes and prefixes, or if they're behind, which many of our students are because of the pandemic or because we haven't had the high quality curriculum, they're getting caught up. So we also just ensured that we have that in all of our middle schools as well. So when students are at the middle school level, that is also true.
Thank you, Jesse. And hopefully that works for Sarah. I think she might have left actually. So, okay. So the questions that I had, were going back to that, that access or that gap in access at home. So being that obviously like a lot of white students or more privileged students have resources at home before they start school, where a lot of Black and brown or disadvantaged students don't have that, like, you know, resource where their parents are putting in some work into their capacity to like learn before they enter school or before they enter pre-K. I'm wondering, does this curriculum also hit that gap as well? Does this curriculum create space for that? Because it seems like if this is work that's being done before they even get to school, right? Like if kids are coming into school a lot more proficient than other students, how... Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around like how would this curriculum make up for that work that, you know, that like work that is only done through privilege? And then how are they able to then do the like grade level work that they have to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I can maybe answer with a little bit of an example if you know. So what we're really looking to do in those cases is to accelerate the learning of a certain group. So I would say like whenever the state assess, so I'll give you like I said, an example. When the state assessments first came out in the spring, the results of those, I sat down with a principal and we dug in, and the scores were not like finalized or anything, but we could still see the results. And so we started to go through and look at the growth scores to see which population of students where are we seeing growth. And I actually think, and the district has presented data on this, but like we do see some really strong growth in our multilingual students across the year. So those students may actually grow more and like learn more in a year than some of our students who might come in advantaged. So we do see that happen whenever I sat with the principal. We could see like, oh wow, that's really great, like that we're seeing that growth, and it was mostly in our multilingual population where we were seeing those high rates of growth. So so I think that's a good sign. We still do. It can be a lot to catch up. So whenever it's a lot to catch up, I would say, really additional time does help. So we have had the district's like investment in summer programming has really declined recently. But we still, we try and do what we can either with a partner like LearningWorks, or Jesse did offer math tutoring to third graders over the summer. And we had Reiki wrote their own grant to be able to do some summer learning for students. We've also had some cases where schools do offer some outdoor, outside of school time, tutoring and skills work. at schools. But we are able to catch up some during the year, but probably not as much as we would like. So.
Thank you. My other question is, it seems like a lot of this curriculum really depends on like cultural awareness or just like awareness on inclusivity and social like capacity building. So I know that we have a huge problem with that, and getting folks to have the capacity to do that work, getting the professional development space to do that work. How are we, because it seems like it really is dependent on the teachers being able to like do this work or do this work on their own, or have the the inclusivity, like knowing which students might not be doing well, how to engage with them in a way that will be accessible to them. That's not the work that we're going to be doing to support teachers, right? So where would that come from? How would then, if say like, because I obviously we have some great teachers that their capacity is above what we're asking, but we also do have a lot of teachers that do have a problem with inclusivity and understanding what that looks like. And so how are we planning to do some of that work with our limitations with the professional development that we have?
Mm-hmm. We do focus on school culture, which I think of broadly as like focused on inclusivity and belonging for all kids. So we do continue to have that focus, and we do look at that, for instance, that question specifically around like, do all kids feel like they belong? Are we making sure that all kids feel like they're connected to an adult in the building? Those are some things that we do, like we track and work on. As far as curriculum is concerned, the curriculum materials that we have, one of the reasons we chose them was because they're known for for being culturally appropriate, culturally responsive. If you look through the CKLA materials, for instance, they will give you specific pointers to the teacher to say, like, this is a strategy for multilingual learners. So I would say that there are some resources. One of the, the benefits of the ELA curriculum also was that in their one of the major updates that they made in the curriculum was to make sure that it represented a diverse population of students. So, and we have had to do definitely some work about how to address that whenever like difficult questions have come up. And we have worked to support teachers whenever those have come up at the elementary. And, Dr. Ahmed and Allison might also be able to speak to that.
Yeah. And the process, go ahead, Allison.
I was just going to say quickly to your point. So if you zoom out on the strategic plan, 1.1 is, I think I'm getting that right, is around staff mindsets around equity and inclusivity and belonging. So we've also invested in the culture and climate coordinators at our schools. But I met this week with Barrett Wilkinson about, I think, the exact question you asked, which is like, all right, yes, we're thinking about culturally responsive curriculum, but that's not sufficient for the bigger picture of the staff mindsets and skill sets. And so Barrett's really heading up that work, and we're finding ways to weave it into professional development with teachers.
Yeah, if I can just add to that a little bit, Barrett, we're working with a group called the Leadership Academy right now, and we're working with them. They've done a lot of work around culturally responsive teaching. And so together with them, we're building out some curriculum that we can bring into our own educators and build in through sessions throughout the year. So there's sort of that embedded within our student curriculum piece, and then there's the explicit teaching and training and professional development for our staff. And Barrett's going to come to this committee in November, I think is on our current draft calendar, to speak with us more about that part of the work.
Thank you. That's amazing. I'm glad I'm glad that you guys are thinking about that and there are steps to, adjust that, because that is a huge part of this curriculum being able to be successful. If folks aren't able to really recognize what those things are, what those cultural responsiveness is, or like what classroom inclusivity is, how to ensure that even if a student can't participate in one way, there might be other ways that they can be encouraged to participate. So I really appreciate that. Another question, and this is my final question. So another question I had is how a lot of, or just from the example we saw today, the skills that are being learned seems to be around like process or how to critically look at something. I'm wondering if those skills are being tracked as they move up grade levels to where they like go from like looking at the process of critically thinking to like then doing it. Is there a way, are we looking at tracking that work so we can see that like, oh, look, they got this part down, now on to the next part of fully understanding like what it is they're critically thinking about, what that thing is, and how to like, I guess, explain that for themselves or how to understand that for themselves.
One of the benefits of high quality instructional materials is that there's coherence K to 8. So we don't have like all like the standards build, just like you're saying, off of each other. And like, for example, one of the important parts of the Common Core is using evidence to create a claim, so having evidence-based claims. And so that obviously looks different in kindergarten than it does in 8th grade. But the assessments will tell us are kids doing that at the age-appropriate time throughout. So when I was talking about those data meetings, we're going to be sitting down and looking like, are kids doing that at the time that they're supposed to be doing that? So the answer is yes. Like, I think that's that's a really huge benefit of having a curriculum, is that there's that vertical coherence that you can really trust.
And I just wanted to add, because it connects, Nyla, to your question about like, how do you close the gap between kids who come in from like a really academic language rich home or background or experiences and those who don't. That part of the science of reading that Jesse covered, and also the Common Core shift around learning through nonfiction, is that we're never doing critical thinking. I mean, you heard her ask about summer, but that was in the service of learning the protocol. And then once students learn the protocol, they should be talking about content that matters, so like content that's actually going to build their academic knowledge. And we don't wait to start that. That starts right from the get-go.
Thank you so much. Thanks for answering those questions and for all the good work. Yusra, go ahead.
So Nyla just asked my question, but I can start by something that I just noticed in the data that was presented last night, and really understanding where the disconnect is in terms of reading for our students. So if you look at school 1, sorry, maybe you guys don't have the data in front of you, but you look at school 1 and school 8, and you see that school 8 basically has no students that are well below the reading expectations, and then you have school 1 that is 31%. Well below, and 32% below their state expectations. And then we get into middle school, and then that difference is not big, basically. And then you go into high school, and now again we see this huge difference in reading skills. So I just want to understand where the disconnect is, and what are we doing better in the middle schools that are we not doing in the elementary and high schools? So that's one question. The other question is that our curriculum, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's focused on implementing classroom learning and how to engage students. But I want to understand, how are then we making sure that students stay with the skills that they learn in class and that they translate into middle school and high school and beyond. And the way I'm thinking about that is homework, and keeping in mind the point that Nyla just raised, and being conscious about the students' home situations and giving students a space to get help to get those homeworks done. But I just want to understand, how are then we allowing students to grapple with what they learn in class and learn independently on their own, and then do some kind of presentation or take an assessment in class to show the learning and see where the students still need help in understanding the curriculum. Those are my two questions for now.
And sorry, before you guys answer, can I just, Sarah, just let me know the time. We do just have one more piece to look at, which is our agenda. And I don't think it should take too long, right? But yeah, just letting y'all know to maybe answer swiftly. And if there's any more information to email out. Thanks. Oh, you guys can go ahead and respond, whoever would like to.
So this, I think that I lost the first one, sorry. The second one was about how do we ensure that kids could like retain the what they're learning, right? So that's tricky, but I do think some of what Allison talked about is like the curriculum itself is super engaging and kids go deep into a topic. It's not just like a smattering of understanding. Like there's a whole, it's like 2 months about frogs, and they really understand frogs and all of the things that they want to know and about frogs. And then there's a project where they actually take action to support frogs in their environment, right? So there's like, it progresses where you learn about it, you write about it, and then you take action. And so that's true K-8, and I just think that kind of learning is what sticks with people more than kind of like discrete skills here and there. So that's just one answer. But there's more to talk about that. It's a great question.
Yeah, and in terms of your questions about the variability in the data, I think they're all really good questions, and kind of hearkening back to what Vice Chair Bondo was talking about, like our short-term job is to do the implementation work really, really well, and then I think we can make more valid conclusions out of the data. So even though we're definitely going to be keeping track of student achievement, internally we're holding ourselves really accountable for strong implementation. The analogy is sometimes made like you can't not take the prescription the doctor gave you and then come back and say it's not working. You have to do the prescription with integrity. And so just to say, I think I look forward to looking at how this data shapes, the more we can be successful in that really strong implementation.
So you said that the curriculum is I cannot say that word, expeditionary learning. And I know that Deering and Portland High School are not expeditionary learning styles. So how would that translate to students who are used to that kind of learning and then come to those two schools?
The curriculum and the school model are kind of separate outfits, although they do obviously can fit together well, but a school can implement the curriculum without implementing the school model. The one thing I'll say where the expeditionary model, they just get a little advantage is like that protocol, like back-to-back, face-to-face, and many others, they've actually been doing for quite some time. But otherwise, everyone's kind of starting in the same place.
So if I go to Portland,
I'm just gonna,
I'll feel fine.
We're at time. I'm just wondering if we could just, I'm so sorry, Yusra. Maybe you can email them your, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I can explain that. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off.
No, maybe, yeah, Sarah, how about you just say out loud what you texted me? I think it'll just be best if we just discuss it now.
Yep. Did you want to wrap up that conversation? If there are questions.
I was just going to tell Yusra if it's okay for her to email her questions.
That's okay. I can do that.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, we're at 6:30. But yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
So the last part of the agenda for tonight was to revisit the ARC for the committee for the year, which we've talked about a little bit. I know that Dr. Opperman has a couple of items that she would like to add in that we touched on last time, and we wanted to talk about that a little more. But already in the current version of the schedule, we weren't going to finalize the ARC until next meeting in October anyway. And that also means that gives me the time to go to the conference on September 20th, where I learn what the actual required policy changes are that we have to make by law. So in our current ARC for the agenda for the year, it says in October we're going to finalize the ARC. So if you all are comfortable with it, I could just take any further committee, additions or changes, requests to adjust the ARC between now and the next meeting, and then we could work to finalize it the next time.
I feel good with that. I think I already talked to you about my adjustments, and so it would just be the rest of the members. If you guys have anything else you would like to add, just, yeah, I think an email thread is perfect. Then people can just state what they need that way. And then we can finalize it at the next meeting. I think that sounds good. Mickey, Yusra, Julianne, does that work for you all?
It does. I think, I just think to let the rest of the committee know that I was looking at the algorithm for class size that's used K through 12 to see, distribution and et cetera. And then teacher certification, and which was some information they're going to give us anyway in the meantime. So those are the areas I was particularly interested in. So that gives you an idea of what I'm sending off. Then that's all I have to say.
And Dr. Opperman, maybe you and I can connect just to figure out where it might make sense to try to insert that into the calendar.
Absolutely. No problem.
Okay.
And Julianne, just checking, I think you said you were going to give us some background research for some of those.
Yep. I did send
you already send it?
I've sent some information. I have sent some information. I will send, I don't know if it got to you, but I will make sure it gets to you, what I have. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, just maybe forwarding that to all of us just to refresh our minds so that we can have that conversation.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that's good. I'm so sorry for holding you all up. Thank you so much, Jesse and Allison, for your presentation today. I think we all really appreciate the work you all are doing, and seems like a really great start for us and for this new curriculum. And yeah, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Ursa. Can I have a second? Thank you, Mickey. Okay, all in favor. Thank you. We are adjourned. Or the Portland Board of Education Policy and Curriculum Committee is adjourned on Wednesday, September 11th at 6:34 p.m. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.